Good day everyone, I am Maureen May Ladrica, and for today's video, I will be discussing to you the, the topic choosing test type and test format. Whether selecting ready-made instruments or designing new ones, several key issues should be considered. These include selecting test formats or task types, appropriate to the SLA study or language test aims, and considering the effect of choice has on the construct of the test and learner's performance. Test format choice. A test format has three main facets: mode of delivery, components assessed, and proficiency levels assessed. Firstly, for instance, a test can be delivered in a paper-based or a computer-based mode. Secondly, tests also differ in the aspects of language they assess. For instance, they may offer four separate sections, components, each focusing on a different language skills: speaking, listening, reading, and writing, and are providing separate scores for each section. Alternatively, tests might integrate different skills, requiring learners to first listen to a talk or discussion and then write or speak about it, or perhaps write about a passage that they have read. Integrated tests might have a single score outcome to represent the main underlying construct, such as one score for integrated writing, whereby the definition of writing includes the reading of materials that inform the writing, or multiple scores to represent the various underlying skills involved. An example of an integrated test is a Canadian Academic English Language, or CAEL test. Some tests also separately assess grammatical and vocabulary knowledge, in addition to one or more language skills. For instance, the Michigan English Placement Test comprises four sections: grammar, vocabulary, listening comprehension, and reading comprehension. A third test format facet is how the test distinguishes between learners of different proficiency levels. Some tests are multi-level. All learners sit for the same test and are awarded different scores or bands according to their performance. Other tests are graded. Learners select the most appropriate test level for their present ability and receive a pass or a fail at that level. The multiple choice task type normally consists of STEM or questions and several response options and is the most choice. Yes or no, or true or false. Tasks allowed to or for fast and straightforward marking using a scoring key. At the same time, because there are only two options, learners have a 50% chance to answer or correctly by guessing, so the learner's true ability is not revealed in the test scores. To reduce guessing, a third option, not given, is often introduced. However, the difference between false and not given might be obvious, particularly for listening tasks where learners cannot revisit the recording to confirm their choices. The difference between true and not given can be disputable due to inferring from a text, thus risking a double key. In addition, tasks with a not given option are more difficult to write. Matching tasks are particularly useful for assessing reading and listening comprehension, especially to assess global processing, understanding the gist or main idea. At lower proficiency levels or with younger learners, picture matching can be useful. At higher levels, header paragraph matching is a useful format. The key thing to keep in mind is that if the number of answers available is the same as the number of items, example, 4 words to match to 4 images, 1/3 of the items have been matched correctly to their answer. Ordering tasks, also sometimes called sequencing, are widely used to assess textual coherence and cohesive devices. It is most appropriate in computer-based testing where learners can drag and drop text elements and check-read the text afterwards. The main challenge in producing ordering tasks is to ensure that only one sequence of word sentence is correct. Decisions also need to be made on how to score the responses, since one incorrect place element will lead to all banked close. A selected response version of the fill-in-the-blank task types. The learner is given a paragraph in which words have been deleted. The deletions can be principled, with the aim of assessing specific language features, or bank gap fill, or can be based on the systematic deletion of every nth word. The learner's task is to restore the words in the blank by selecting from a bank of words. Acceptability. One variant of an acceptability judgment task is a grammatically judgment test judgment, or GJT. Learners are presented with a sentence and asked to judge whether and or to what extent it is grammatical. Another variant is a yes or no vocabulary task in which learners are presented with a list of words, some of which are genuine words and others are pseudo words. The learners identify those that they consider be genuine words.
Good day everyone. So before we proceed to our next topic, let me introduce myself first. I am Angeline Sanchez, and in this moment, I will be discussing about the constructed response task type. So what is constructed response? Constructed response can be defined as an assessment task that requires students to apply their knowledge and critical thinking skills to real-world problems. It is often called open-ended questions. They require the students to construct and develop their own answer without the help of others, suggestion, or even choices. So there are different types of constructed response. So number one, we have the gap close. Close test or gap fill task. From the word itself, it's gap. So this is frequently used exercise type where a target word in a sentence is hidden and replaced with gap. So the learner is then asked to figure out the hidden word based on its context. So closed words involve letters being removed from particular words in a passage of text. So your child then needs to fill this in correctly. So second one is the PSI test. So it is one of the exercise types that appears in the UAAB Language Service Multi-Level English exam. So it tests reading comprehension, spelling, grammar, and vocabulary. So the test consists of completing text in which alternate words have missing letters. To complete the words, you need to add the same number of letters as those given or one more help ensure learners receive text at the appropriate level of difficulty. On a practical level, correct responses can sometimes be found in the surrounding text. So next, the short answer question. Some assignments include questions divided into sections that each require a brief response. So these are referred to as a short answer questions. Short answer questions require concise answer. So it's critical to read the question carefully and consider the processed words. So short answer questions, aside that it's concise, also focused response that may be factual, interpretive, or a combination of the two. However, short answer questions can be time-consuming to mark, and spelling errors may obfuscate the correctness of the answer's meaning. So, it is also difficult to arrive at a consistent marking scheme because the item writer may have overlooked acceptable answers. Next, we have the direct writing. In a directed writing test, students are given a brief and must produce a piece of written work in accordance with that it asked. So the brief specifies the type of writing required, such as a formal letter, a speech, a newspaper article, something like that. So directed writing tasks assist children's ability to write. The specification, an important skill that will carry them beyond the classroom and into adulthood. So it also assesses their ability to recall and replicate features of various non-fictions, text. So it's an excellent way to determine whether or not your children are grasping different types of writing and are progressing. Next is sentence building. So it refers to how you structure your sentences. Sentence structure is the way a sentence is arranged grammatically. So the sentence structure of your writing includes where the noun and verb fall within individual sentence. So this task type tests short-term memory more than chimpanzee. Additionally, because the sentences are presented orally, a learner's performance on the task might be affected by their listening proficiency. So next is elicited imitation, or EI. So it is a testing method that usually requires participants to listen to a series of stimulus sentences, such as or phrases, word sounds, etc., and repeat the sentences verbatim. So elicited imitation is a language sampling procedure in which a child is asked to repeat an utterances that is modeled by the examiner. For teaching imitations, choose functional movements. For example, use facial expression, like frowning, smiling, or laughing. Also use body movements such as clapping, pointing, or waving. So next is reading aloud. Reading aloud is the foundation for literacy development. It is the single most important activity for reading success. To read aloud is an instructional practice where teachers, parents, and caregivers read text aloud to children. The reader incorporates variations in pitch, tone, pace, volume, poses, eye contact, questions, and even comments. To produce a fluent and enjoyable delivery. For example, is the storytelling cubes. Next is picture description. Picture description is a written caption that describes the essential information in an image. Picture descriptions can define photos, graphics, GIFs, and video. Basically, anything containing visual information. So picture description can an information gap task offer learners the opportunity to create unique utterances. Information gap task. So an information gap task is a technique in language teaching where students are missing information necessary to complete the task or solve a problem and must communicate with their classmates to fill in the gaps. So information gap, also known as information exchange. So these activities are communicative activities for two or more learners. So they involve learners having different bits of information that they have to convey orally to each other. An example of this is the Black Death in Europe, where two learners are given maps of Europe annotated with different information and have to ask each other questions to enable them to fill in the details that are missing on their map. Next is an oral proficiency interview is a standardized global assessment of functional speaking ability. So taking form of a conversation between the tester and test taker. So the test measures How well a person speaks a language by assessing the performance of a range of language tests against specified criteria. Oral proficiency includes the ability to communicate verbally in a functional and accurate way in the target language. Next is target language. So the last one is the summary test. Activities where two or more language skills are used together. So these improve task authenticity. So, however, may pose a challenge in construct definition and in turn marking. So if a learner produces a poor summary, it will not be easy to identify whether this is due to misunderstanding the input material or poor writing speaking skills. Some tests use summary tests as a measure of productive skills, while others as a measure of receptive skills, or a combination.